was approached about doing a video of the Ciga Design U-Series Blue Planet, I have to admit I did have some misgivings. For starters, the watch doesn't have a seconds hand, so video of it looks an awful lot like still photography. Second, Ciga was offering to sponsor the video, and I had absolutely no experience with that type of content. I ended up working out a deal with Ciga, wherein I was crystal clear. If there is something I don't like about this watch, I'm gonna say it. Turns out Ciga was fine with that. So yes, this video is sponsored, but Ciga has absolutely no influence over my editorial content. So now let's take a look at the Ciga Design U-Series Blue Planet. The U-Series Blue Planet comes in what I think is amazing first-rate packaging. It's basically a book, but it's also a box. And I have had lots of watches, even relatively nice watches, just come in these basic boxes with a warranty card and not much else. But this right here, it's a nice touch, and I think it's very classy. You're not sifting through some little booklet to try and figure out how to set the watch. It's all right here in this nifty little book box. Obviously, at first glance, it's nothing like any other timepiece I've ever seen before. The version that I have is made of titanium, but it does have some heft to it due to the dial. Speaking of the dial, it is the star of the show here. Just absolutely amazing detail. It's a decent portion size of the Southern Hemisphere. There's Australia, and over here is Madagascar. It's very intricate. It's not some flat map, it's more rounded like a globe, and it has beautiful detailing that gives the land masses three-dimensionality. Is that a word? Dimensionality? I think it's a word. If it isn't a word, then it definitely should be. Anyway, the dial is just beautiful. I find myself getting worked up over every other Grand Seiko dial, but in many respects, this is one of the most amazing dials I've ever seen, mainly because it's not restricted by having to look like an actual watch, and it's beautifully executed. Now let's move on to the question I'm sure all of you are dying to know the answer to. How do you read the time? Well, it's actually pretty cool. It all starts with that compass on the dial and how it points to the two chapter rings. The inner chapter ring is for the minutes, and the outer chapter ring indicates the hours. The hour ring is stationary, and it is the globe that moves 1 degree every 2 minutes. So in 60 minutes, it moves 30 degrees, or 1 full hour marker. Now, this is where things start to become very interesting. The inner ring is the minute ring, and it rotates in the same direction as the globe. But it doesn't just move the typical 360 degrees, it has to move much faster. So in an hour, it rotates a full 390 degrees. And it does so in conjunction with the globe's movement, so every time a minute marker on the inner minute ring lines up with a compass pointer, another minute has gone by. It manages to keep minute accuracy the entire time between hours. It kind of stretches my cognitive ability to really understand exactly what's going on here, but I'm pretty sure they had to radically alter the Chinese ETA 2824 clone that they have beating under the hood in order to pull this off. It's very interesting, and I am thoroughly impressed with what they've done here. I gotta say, I really like it. But when I try to think about how it actually works, it makes me feel like I have a distant cousin of the Monty Hall problem on my wrist. The Blue Planet was the winner of the Challenge Watch Prize GPHG Awards, and I imagine it wasn't just the unique dial and design, but the engineering that went into the actual timepiece that contributed to its victory. Now, the watch has a double-domed sapphire crystal, which doesn't seem to have any anti-reflective coating at all. And this is where some of the things I don't love about this watch start to reveal themselves. When you first glance down at the watch, keeping track of the hours is easy. The compass points to the Arabic numerals like an hour hand, so as far as hours go, it's just like every other watch. But visibility is still a problem. It's just not always easy to see the details of either of the rings. Between the crystal catching lots of glare from the surrounding light, and the fact that the minute scale has to line up with the compass, this isn't a watch you can just glance down at and see what time it is. You have to look at it, and it's not like the Arabic numerals are super easy to see all the time. I'm a bit nearsighted, so I see fairly well up close, but even after several weeks of wearing the watch on and off, it still takes me a few extra seconds to know what time it is. This makes sense. We already know what the best design is for just glancing at a dial and knowing the time immediately. But that design is something that most watch enthusiasts aren't interested in or even worried about. True, it isn't the most practical design, but it isn't supposed to be. I must admit, an inner anti-reflective coating and a brighter, whiter Arabic on the chapter rings would go a long way in terms of visibility and would make it a lot easier to actually see what time it is. And I say that as a person who can see fairly well up close. On a more positive note, I like the size of the watch. It's 46 millimeters, but it wears a lot smaller because it's lugless. It fits fairly comfortably on my slightly under 6-inch Barbie wrist. So if you do have a smaller wrist size, don't let the 46 millimeters intimidate you. You can probably pull it off just fine. I like the rubber strap. It's very comfortable, very flexible, and I just like rubber straps in general. They don't have to fit you perfectly in order for them to feel good on your wrist. Bracelets need to be micro-adjusted, and with leather straps, I often find myself wishing that there was a shorter distance between the holes just because of the way that they fit. But with rubber, it's very easy to find the right fit just because of how grippy it is. There's a lot to like about this watch. I've never worn a watch in public that has gotten so many people asking me about it, and they all seem to intuitively know that it's a watch and not jewelry. It's a great conversation starter with a very detailed dial that looks fantastic in the sunlight. I like to think about how it keeps time and how it's so drastically different from any of the other watches in my collection. I also really like the strap and how it fits. As for negatives, I've already covered the visibility problem, so I won't bother rehashing that here, but there are a couple other things that are worth mentioning. It has a push-pull crown and only 30 meters of water resistance, so it's splash-proof but nowhere near swimmable. Also, it doesn't have a date, but there's still a ghost position when you pull out the crown. And though I'll admit I don't love that, it's not the most unreasonable cost-cutting measure I've ever seen. Which brings me to the price. Currently, right now as of filming, the titanium version of this watch is priced at $1,099 US, while the stainless steel version is $899. That's not inexpensive. In fact, it's a lot of money for some people. Do I believe that you're getting value here? Absolutely. But I don't think everyone would agree with me on that. This is a novelty watch, but it's a pretty cool novelty to have. And at least for me, I'd rather have this than some comparably priced iteration of another mid-tier Seiko diver. I think Ciga did a good job here, but I also think it could be improved. I do hope that they address some of the visibility concerns, and a little more water resistance would be nice as well. But if you're searching for a fun conversation starter that looks really good on the wrist, I have no problem recommending this as a watch you should take under consideration. Hi guys, thank you all so much for watching, and big thank you to Ciga Design for sponsoring this video. I was so excited to have my first ever sponsor on the channel, and Ciga was very open to negotiating the terms of my contract to something I was comfortable with, so kudos to them. If you like the Blue Planet and you were considering making a purchase, I'll be sure to link their websites down in the description box below. I'll also be sure to include a discount code. I don't receive anything if you click on the link. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but if you do like the watch and you were considering making a purchase, then you may as well use the discount code, but it doesn't help support the channel in any way, shape, or form. If you did want to support the channel, however, then I encourage you to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, do all the things that help me grow in the algorithm. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, I picked out some other similar content over here that I think you might like as well.